That's fine. So I'm just running through a PowerPoint so that you can follow me better. So namaste and welcome everybody. So the topic of today is Veda, why Veda in human life. So the Veda, the ultimate authority in what terms? In the sense of dharma. And often we get the confusion of linking Sanatan Dharma to religion. Religion, we stick more to the rituals, and Sanatan Dharma is much wider than that because it's the Vedas as the manual for human life. The root word is Ved, from which Veda is derived in Sanskrit, and that means knowledge. And it's acknowledged as the largest repository of knowledge worldwide. Language is Vedic Sanskrit, and it's the oldest layer of Sanskrit literature. And Rig Veda is also acknowledged as the oldest scriptures of humanity, and that is not me, that is ISBN, so it's official. And if you go to the Vedas, the tradition of Vedic chanting, it's good to know a bit about the worldwide recognition first. 2008, it was inscribed as intangible cultural heritage of humanity. And that was the oral tradition of Vedic chanting, which we know generally are Shruti. Vedas are four: Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sam Veda, Atharva Veda, and these were revealed to the rishis. Now, the context of how it was revealed to the rishis and why to these rishis. It was revealed to the four highest souls in terms of spiritual baggage which they carried from previous lives. In the Sanatan Dharma or Vedic Hindu philosophy, this is not the first creation of this world. The cycle of creation, sustenance, and dissolution has been an ongoing cycle. And each cycle lifetime is 4,320,000,000 years. And at the creation of the human species on earth, each time God gives the knowledge in terms of the Veda. That knowledge is always eternal with Ishvara God. And Rig Veda is revealed to Agni Rishi, Yajur Veda Vayu Rishi, Sam Veda to Aditya Rishi, and Atharva Veda with Angira Rishi. And the rishis, God had them in the samadhi state and revealed the knowledge. Now the question comes, how can God reveal the knowledge in that state? And it's simple. Simple in the sense that God is always guiding us and giving us as intuition or gut feel new knowledge daily. It's if you go on the path of yoga with some meditation, silencing of our mind and our emotions, then we can catch these signals. It's like you have a radio, you have a cell phone. If you are out of range, you can't connect. And the way to connect to Ishvara God is yoga. And yoga is not the limitations to the asana and pranayam. It's going into the meditation. And when you reach that level of dhyan and ultimately samadhi, there you can receive the knowledge in better form. But anyway, if you start practice some meditation, you can easily connect and sense the divine guidance within each and every single person, which in generally we say in Hindi, it's Antaratma ki awaaz, and I would say it's the inner voice guiding us. So Shruti, the Veda is also known as Shruti because That knowledge has been handed down in the oral tradition. It's only when paper and ink was started being in use that we've got it compiled in books. And the age of the Vedas now, initially, according to what we learn in the current historical text, we'll often find that it's 1500 years BC. But then there's been corrections, amendments to that. Now it's being linked to the Mohenjo-daro culture, which is a later phase of Vedic culture, and which is inscribed as 4000 years BC. And you know why? Because the Vedas, the Western world, especially the British, when they came, they ascribed it to the Mohenjo-daro culture just to show that it was an invasion rather than the source was India itself. So they wanted to show that no, India itself had no culture. They came there. So each and every phase of colonization of India, people came there from outside, and this is what makes the Indian culture today. No, we had the root culture that was the Vedic philosophy, the Vedic culture. And actually, if you go into net searches, we'll find also the revised age of Veda is some 10,000 years BC. It was still much older than that. You know, when we start prayers, the Hindu prayers, there's something which we call a Sankalp Patha. And this again goes on the oral tradition, Shruti. And it gives the age of the knowledge revealed to mankind at the creation of the human species as 1,960,853,121 years, which is about not even half of the lifetime of this universe. Because I told you it's 4,320,000,000 years. And if you do half of it, it's more than 2 billion years. We're not yet there. So the revelation, now let's look into the brief of the revelation. Rigved is known as Jnana Kand, knowledge. And if we go into it, there's so many various types of knowledge which we'll address in due course. Yajurveda is more on karma, actions. Samved is more on bhakti and devotion, and Atharvaved is Vijnan, logic and science. So it's Rigved is known as Dhyankand because it's more of knowledge. So each, because the highest content, that's why it has been ascribed at that particular point. Knowledge, actions, devotion, and logic or science. And the beauty of it is that the science is, the description of the science starts with knowledge of the essential primordial matter, which we know as Prakriti Sattva Rajtam, and which is yet being inquired by modern science. If you know about the CERN, CERN research center in Switzerland and France, so then you will find that they are still looking what gives mass to matter. And that's been going since more than 50 years. And if we go into that, they've reached somewhere when they, I think in 2013, they said they knew that, but then the coordinator for the media communication said, no, we are still far ahead. And that was a gentleman from Muzaffarnagar in India who did his post-graduation in IIT and then did his PhD in US. And he said, I think we have to go back to the Vedas, to the Nasadiya Sukta, which describes creation. So that's where science come into the game. And we have the Upaveda, now which more goes onto the details of particular branches of knowledge. We have Ayurveda, which is medical science, Dhanurveda, which is military science, Gandharva Veda, which is music, Shilpa, that is mechanics, engineering, and architecture. We have Shiksha, which is about language, articulation, pronunciation. Chanda is more prosody, so it's more about poetry and literature. Vyakaran is grammar. Nirut is the etymology of words, the constructions of words, because Sanskrit has a series of root words from where we can build on. And then Jyotish is not the palmistry one. Jyotish is the astronomy. And we have Kalp, which is about the rituals, the ceremonial part of it. And in the ancillary Vedic text, we have Upanishad, which is about spirituality, the spiritual sciences. Darshan, which is about the philosophy. And as I mentioned, Yoga Darshan in itself is a whole way of life. And apart from Yoga Darshan, we also have 5 Yoga Darshan. Then we have Vaisheshik Darshan, which is about science. We have Sankhya Darshan, which is about the creation of the universe. We have Nyaya Darshan, which is about logic. We have Mimamsa Darshan, which is about the rituals. And we have Vedanta, which is about spiritual sciences. It's the gist codified by various rishis, sages from the Vedas. We have the Griha Sutras, which talks more about the sanskaras. And probably you know some of them, the Namkaran Sanskar, which is the naming ceremony, Vivaha Sanskar is the wedding ceremony. So we have 16 of them. We have the Manusmriti, which is about universal law. And if you look at law as it is today, the base yardstick for laws is Manu. And the text is Manusmriti. Economics is found in the Arthashastra of Kautilya. And Kautilya has another text which is called the Chanakya Niti, and which is about politics. So I just hope I've been able to brush about giving an outline of the contents of the Vedas, which is called the Vedanga, or subject-related text. Let's look a bit about general concepts of how this knowledge is being applied in human life and daily life. We know we've heard from various quarters, we need to be human. But there's one mantra in the Vedas, one part of it, which we say, Sukti says, Manur Bhava Devyam Janam. So we are talking about the construct of a human society, Devyam Janam, with virtuous thoughts, speech, and action. The emphasis from the Vedas is Manasa Vacha Karmana. So for somebody to be truly humane, he has to build the harmony between Manasa, which is the thoughts, Vacha, which are the words, spoken, written, etc., which we say Vacha is more speech, but in the world of today, I would include all the words because we do more texting and messages rather than talking. And then Karmana is actions, speech. So when we say to be a human being, we have to be humane at these 3 levels: our thoughts, speech, and actions. And we've got somebody who beautifully described it. Bhattacharya is a great Indian poet. And he said, Manasyanyat vachasyanyat karmanyanyat duratmanam manasyekam vachasyekam karmanyekam mahatmanam. So for the fellow whose thoughts go on one line, speech goes another line, second line, and actions totally different. Third line, this is called Duratma. So this is not a human being. Duratma means the cruel or wicked person. And who is the Mahatma now? Mahatma means the real, true human being. Manas yekam, vachas yekam, karman yekam. So there should be total harmony between thought, speech and actions. So that is one concept of how to recognize a true human being. Then we've all probably go through notes here and there which says we have to look at all with friendly eye. That is also the basis there is Mitrasya Chakshusha Samikshamahi, which is in one mantra of the Yajurveda 36 chapters. So let's look at all with a friendly eye. It doesn't mean only human beings. It addresses all the other forms of life and even the inanimate things, telling us to respect nature, respect the laws of nature, and which we know now the outcry is for climate change and ecological balance. So if we start with that, looking at the world, because why we say Mitrasya Chakshusha Samikshamahi, each and every element in this universe has its real importance. And each and every species also helps to maintain that ecological balance. Then we have the concept of globalization, which we've been hearing probably since the late 1980s. With a global world, with a global village, and the global village in the modern sense is limited only to trade and commerce. But the Vedas tells us, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is but one family based on the universal living values. And these living values also, because the absence of proper knowledge, basic knowledge about the Vedic Hindu philosophy, we just listen to bits and pieces from other quarters and think that probably they have a higher level or values or ethics, and thus we just cross the barriers and join them. What we know as people converting to other religions is just because they feel the other one has a better product for us, and that is due to the absence of knowledge. That's why Vedas given to mankind as the manual to live a truly humane life. And just as we buy any piece of equipment, we get a manual. Man has taken that same philosophy. There's one description which says Yatha Pinde Tatha Brahmande and Yatha Brahmande Tatha Pinde. Whatever we see at the micro level, the laws which we say Rit, all the practices, the correct practices, we can see it also at the macro level. And what we see at the macro level is also seen at the micro level. And this applies to philosophy, this applies to sciences and everything. Like if we look at the creation itself with the various planets, constellation and everything, the equilibrium is maintained by gravitation, attraction, repulsion forces, which is described in the Vaisheshik Darshan. And for that science, we know that when we are sending rockets into the space, we need all those elements of science which are compiled and built in the technology to send the rocket, and it's gravitating around the Earth and then moving out of the orbit, going to, say, the moon, and they are orbiting the moon. It's the same technology which is about the planets and the various constellations moving each around the other. And for whatever type of behavior I need in my personal life, if I have that total harmony between my thoughts, my words, and my speech, and if everybody goes in the same line within the family, then we'll have the harmony within the family, we'll have the correct family life. And if we grow out of this, beyond this, we'll get better community living and world values. Then we have the concept of Sangachadon Sambadadhon, which talks about unity, harmony. And this is the last, I think the third but last mantra of the Rig Veda, which says, Prema se milkar chalo bolo sabhi jnani bano. So we all move in unity, unity of thoughts, unity of speech, and unity of actions. Bolo sabhi jano, let's all become learned. So there is no restriction on the learning of the Vedic philosophy. There's no restriction. There's no restriction as regards to gender or to color or to race or to any subdivisions which have been created by men. It's a universal knowledge. Then it comes to प्रेम से मिलकर चलो बोलो सभी ज्ञानी बनो पूर्वजों की भांति तुम कर्तव्य के मानी बनो. We often hear people saying, especially from the Hindu community, we are descendants of sages. That is perfectly right. But then this mantra reminds us, Purvazon ki bhanti tum, like the knowledgeable, learned sages in our rich cultural heritage. Kartavya ke mani bano, for us to call ourselves descendants of these noble seers and sages. Let's toe the line and do the correct karma actions, then and only then we can claim to that. So I think once I was asked by Apurva about the caste system, and this is the wrongly construed system that has been imposed to us by the Western world. In fact, what is it? It's only division of labor according to competencies. Nothing more than that. There's nothing which is called lineage or pedigree based in that. In fact, in the Hindu philosophy, it's called Varna. And there's inter-Varna mobility depending if you improve your competencies or if you go down the ladder, then you drop in rank. So let's look at one basic prayer which we all know, the Gayatri Mantra, which is Om Bhur Bhuvas Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. If we look at it, all the mantras of the Vedas, there are three parts of it. There's Stuti, which is praising of the qualities of God, because the praising of the qualities is not to make God happy, it's to get them gradually, slowly imbibed in our life. And we know from the practicals, for that person who is good, who tries to be good, at each and every step, finally he goes to be a good person. And from that person who goes on the wrong track, each and every step just gets him worse. So that's why when we praise the virtuous qualities, even of our parents or our peers, we tend to get them in our life. So that is Stuti. Then the Prarthana part is the prayer part of the mantra. And here in the Gayatri Mantra, the prayer part is Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodaya, which says it's a prayer for the enlightenment of the intellect. And then Upasana is meditation, and meditation in one word in the Gayatri Mantra is Dhimai. So the rest is Stuti. And it says Prarthana has to be done, prayer has to be done only when you do the Purusharth, when you put up mental and physical efforts, then and only then God will grant you the prayers. It's not a question of trading with God. You make such and such offerings for succeeding in such and such issues. If you just sit down and make the offerings with no efforts, you will get nothing. So it's not a question of bargaining or bartering with God. It's a question of putting up your efforts and God will do the top. Those who've been to India, seeing the coolies at the railway station, when the coolie picks up your bag, he always says, just put a hand. Why put the hand? You just give him the courage to lift the bag, which is probably heavier than that person also. But then they do it. So that is the concept of, as we say, yatha pinde tatha brahmande. What we see at the micro level goes also at the macro level. So it's the same thing for our prayers, and each and every prayer goes in the same line. We have to put up our efforts. And the mantras are not only for prayers, it goes in the science and the philosophy and the way of life, which I told before. Then look at the Shanti part. This is really marvelous because the Shanti part has so many parts of it. And each and every word talks about an element in this universe and linking it with the Shanti. Like it says, Dyo Shanti, the luminous bodies is Dyo. Then Antarik Shanti, the space. Prithvi Shanti, it's the earth. Apar Shanti is the waters. It goes down the line like this. And when we go into the Shanti part, what's it's telling us? That we need peace from each and every element of this universe, and including Vishwadeva and the plants and living species. Vishwadeva, the learned and elderly persons around us, and everything brings us peace. But if we recognize the Shanti part, after some contemplation, we realize that we should be the source of peace and reacting in a peaceful manner to all these elements of this universe, whether living or non-living. And when we need to react to them in a peaceful manner and act towards them in a peaceful manner, this is where we should respect the laws of nature, we should respect nature, and hence we have a duty to minimize pollution or the negative impacts of our actions on the whole setup of this universe. So this is a whole probably lecture in itself about peace, living in a peaceful manner, or leading a peaceful life according to the Vedic philosophy. Then we have the universal concepts. This is easy and this is common. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha. Praying for the universal welfare. So prayers in the Vedas also is beyond the one individual. It's always the concept of we. We, that is all inclusive. We take all living beings with us. So the concept of me, mine, and myself is defeated there. The yoga philosophy tells us we have to go beyond the ego. Then look at the universal concepts of God itself. It says Ananda, the all blissful, Sarva Vyapak, omnipresent, present everywhere at all times. Sarvadhya, omniscient, all knowledgeable, knowledgeable of the past occurrences, of the present occurrences, of the likely future occurrences, and taking the cognizance of each and everybody's karma at the time the karma is being done, so that in due course, arriving at maturity, we'll get the yield, the fruits of the positive karma and the penalties of the negative karma. Understanding the concept of Ishwar, God as Dayalu, the all-merciful. All-merciful in the sense that always driving us. If we just pay attention to our inner voice, whenever we are doing good, we have the sense of happiness, enthusiasm, satisfaction to move ahead. And we are contemplating on bad things, we have the break in terms of fear, doubt, and if we are caught, shame. So that is where we need to understand. We need to understand the concept of Nyayakari, all just. God being all just, so karma we can't escape. For all the positive things we've done, we'll get the positive results, and negative karma, we'll get the negative outcomes. So there the law of karma says for every action, there's an equal and corresponding reaction, which is totally the reverse of what we learn in physics, because here in karma, positive will lead only positive results and negative will give always negative results. So if we understand that there are more than that, but I've taken only 5 of them, if we understand the basics, then we'll always know that we can't escape the law of karma, we can't escape that. And when we can't escape that, we need to be truly humane. And I was talking about the 4 Purusharth, the goals of human life in the Vedic Hindu philosophy. It says, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So Dharma is righteous living, Artha is righteous earnings, Kama is righteous enjoyment of the righteous earnings, and Moksha ultimately the final stage where we break from the cycle of birth and death to be into the eternal bliss, mukti of Ishwar, God. We also learn about the values, universal human values, which the rishis have codified in various texts. We can take it from Yama, Niyama, which are the do's and don'ts of life. It starts with ahimsa, non-violence, satya, truth, asteya, non-stealing, ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, self-control, self-restraint, aparigraha, non-hoarding. And we saw the effect of hoarding during the start of COVID, when the lockdown was to be implemented. People just rushed to the markets and bought probably stocks of materials which would last for over 3 months, over a year. When we have such a situation, if we think about others, we'll be probably buying to keep a reasonable stock because the stock will be replenished in due time. So non-hoarding, and it's non-hoarding of even thoughts, words, and practical things. Then we have niyama, which are the personal discipline level, which says Soch, purity of mind, body, and spirit. Santosh, be content. Tapa, developing resilience, enduring some adversities to develop resilience to better face adversities in life. Swadhyaya is the study of scriptures, and Ishwar Pranidhan, surrender to the laws of Ishwar God and to the laws of nature, to the laws in the creation. Otherwise, if we take it from Manusmriti, it says, Dhriti Kshama Damosteyam, Shaucham Indriya Nigraha Dhri Vidya Satyam Akrodha. These are the 10 tenets of Dharma. Dhriti, patience. Kshama is forgiveness, compassion. Dhamma is fortitude, equanimity. Asteyam, non-stealing. Shaucham, purity of mind, body, and spirit. Indriya Nigraha is self-control, control of the senses. The converting your mind into wisdom, into intellect. Vidya is true knowledge. Satya being truthful, and akrodha, non-anger. It's surfing. Vedas also tells us surfing through the adverse situations. I want to sum up, what are the Vedas for is to move away from pains, suffering, and afflictions, which eventually, when we are born in this world, we are bound to suffer. To move away from that and to be happy in life. And to be happy, it's not only physical happiness, it's the holistic approach to happiness and wellness, physical, mental, moral, social, everything. So it's the holistic approach. The spiritual path goes hand in hand with the physical path. It's just like the dual track of the railway line. If you remove one of them, then you are not going to reach destination safe. And to surf through adverse situations, when you're confronted to adverse situations, just remember these 2 short sentences. Koi baat nahi, never mind. or let it be. And if the person in front of you goes worse, then just leave it to the divine justice. Ishwar Nyay Karega, leave it to karma. If we just get these two concepts in our life, we'll start being a better person. So I'll just end here because I've already run over time for probably 5 minutes. And I'll leave the floor open to questions. These are my contact details. If you have any questions, you can just email me or send me as personal message, or else you have the banner in the background. You can contact me at the Hindu Center of Atlanta, and the Facebook page, and everything is given there. So you can just connect to me, and this PowerPoint presentation which I did, I would be pleased to share it to all of you as PDF files so that you can go through it. And if you have any questions, you can just put it to me either through WhatsApp or through Facebook Messenger. So thank you everybody for your attention. I think let's leave the floor open if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Acharya ji. I think we have time for maybe one question, just to be respectful of time. So if anybody has a question, now would be the best time to ask it.
Namaste, Acharya ji. Pradyumna here. You spoke about a lot of Vedas and Vedangas, a lot of scriptures, right? How much do you think, like what percentage of those scriptures we actually have today, and how much has been lost in the last 2000 years? Do you know, like, can you comment on that?
As far as the Vedas are concerned, these are intact till now, because the Vedas, the tradition of the oral tradition of transmitting it from generations to generations, we still have the 8 to 10 forms of reading of the Vedas and corroborating each one with the other. That is how we reconcile matters. We can know what are the additions and subtractions. And when it was being compiled into written forms, all of these various patterns of reading of the Vedas were just reconciled to bring what we say as the mool or the essence of them. So the essence of them is what we know as the Veda Sanhita. These are the only mantras. And what has been developed from the unfolding of the knowledge of the mantras, this is known as the Bhashya or the translation. And if we want just to get a brief about what's there in the Vedas, there's one book which is Introduction to the Vedas by Swami Dayananda Saraswati, and it's available online also. I think PDF copies are also available free online. So that gives you a brief about the various subjects of the Vedas. And Swami Dayananda Saraswati also explained the various forms of how Vedas were chanted and still being chanted. Unfortunately, we can say the southern part of India has been preserving that chanting form. Some parts in the north are there, but it's mostly located in the southern part of India. And we still have Gurukuls teaching the various patterns of reading the Vedas, memorizing them in the various patterns of reading. So if you get 8 persons each practicing the various one form, sitting down together, and they can reconcile and bring that. But as far as the other ancillary texts are concerned, there have been adulterations. There have been adulterations, and this is what has brought, I would say, some disgrace to the Vedic knowledge. But there also we can sift, because even the rishis, the sages have said, what doesn't conform to the essence, essential teachings of the Vedas, you just remove it. So if you remove it, then you can go on the right path. Like one thing which I mentioned was about the caste and varna. The Varna is just social classification according to competencies, but the Varna which has been imposed, and most likely by the Portuguese, because caste is one word from the Portuguese language, and that means blood related lineage, inherited characteristics, which is not there in the Vedas. The Vedas talk about the various classifications. It's like the educators are like the head in our body. Those who are in the defense, they're like the arms of the body. And those who are in the business and agricultural community are like the belly, nourishing the whole body, and they nourish the whole society. And the service providers, manual workers, are just like the feet, bringing you everywhere. This is one concept. The other concept is about the discrimination towards women, which is not there in the Vedas. And people have inserted uh, sutras in the Manusmriti, shlokas in the Manusmriti, just adulterated that knowledge and showed that the Vedas practice discrimination towards women. Whereas the Vedas tells us the first university of any newborn child in the lap of the mother, and says when the mother is well educated, then and only then she can foster, she can nurture the good qualities in the child. So I've just given you two examples of how we go. We've gone by the adulterations, and unfortunately, Indian history also has been adulterated. Adulterated to show that the Mahabharata is only 5,000 years old. And when we are talking about the yugas, so Mahabharata was in the Dwapar Yuga, and Dwapar Yuga itself is 864,000 years. And we are talking about the Ramayana was in Treta Yuga. So Ramayana was about 1.3 million years behind. That is the Treta Yuga. So when even the Western philosophy talks to us about yugas, and when they talk to us about yugas, the distraction is that they tell you about yug. So the world starts with Satyug. So if I take one Satyug, Treta, and Dwapar, it comes to about 2 billion years now. And they say that Indian history is only 5,000 years old. How come? I once challenged that with the Cambridge University. They agreed that I had a valid point, but then they just covered it with their own teachings. When we were reviewing the syllabus of Hinduism, which is taught at the secondary schools level in Mauritius, that was for the 10th and 12th grade here. We were reviewing that and I challenged that. I said, you're teaching about the yugas and you're saying that the Hindu religion, the Hindu philosophy dates only 5,000 years old. And you're also teaching about the Ramayana and the Gita there in Hinduism. And you acknowledge that Ramayana was in Treta Yuga and the other one, Gita, was in Dwapar Yuga. So how do you reconcile matters? But then they just brush it and push it at the back of the door.
That was a very comprehensive answer. Thank you. Very enlightening.
So thank you.
Dhanyavad Acharya ji. I will send out the recording as well as the PDF for anyone that's interested. And
Yeah.
I think that will be the conclusion of the event. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time.